criteria, and today we will be going to discuss few more things about criteria, how criteria will work. Okay, just criteria will contain several methods to apply restrictions or to get the selection list or to get any functionality. Just a specific method is there so that it will be very clean. Okay, if you want to apply some conditions in the weight class, we'll add a restriction. Okay, and the restrictions can be added using the class restrictions where there are several static methods. One is equal to, okay, one is not equal to, like this, and okay, not equal to means NE. Okay, not equal to means equal to is EQ, not equal to is NE. Okay, in the same way, I am not telling any, giving any values here. For not equal to, we will use NE, and the property name is the name of the project class attribute. Okay, that's how NE will work. Yes, even between. Like this, age should be between 20 and 30. Okay, like this, all these conditions can be written through direct SQLs. And between ID equal to means if the primary key value is equal to, okay, and I like will be used for like, okay, just what we call we'll write some conditions like this. Okay, the matching records will be fetched from person a person underscore name like or person. So then it will fetch all the records from the person table whose person name starts with R. The rest of the thing can be anything. For such purposes, we write either like or I like. Okay, and then in. Already we have discussed in how in will work. Okay, ID in here we will give a list. Sorry, here we will give a list. Okay, where the list of IDs or set of IDs. Okay, to in first parameter will be the name of the project class attribute. The second parameter will be a collection, either a list or a set or whatever it might be. It will be a collection of values to be there in the in list. Okay, and understood? First is the name of the project class attribute. Second can be either a list or a set where it contains the collection of values to be there in the in list. Understood? And then after in, even there is a method is empty. Okay, whether the property is empty. Okay, Now it will fetch the record only when the name is empty. Okay. Likewise, we have other methods. Just you can explore these methods your own. Just observe here what are all the methods available. E is not empty. That means like E is not null. So E is not empty means whether it is not empty. Now when age is not empty. Okay. Now E is not empty means it should not be blank. The value should not be blank. E is null. Whether it is null. Okay. E is null. What is the difference between E is null and E is blank? What is the difference between E is null and E is blank?
Null means empty. Null means any value. And we don't know exactly what is the value.
The value is null. Blank means it will have, it doesn't have anything, any character. But if it is null, it will have null value. If it is null, then it has null value. If it is blank means it's not null value, but the content is empty. Empty string. Okay, the value present in that column is the empty string. If it is null, then in that column null value exists. Blank is not a null value. Blank is different and null value is different. Okay. If it is null, then there exists a null value in that column. If it is blank, then there exists an empty string in that column. Understood? That's how. To check whether it is empty or null, we do have different methods. Likewise, is null and we have even is not null. Okay? Understood? Likewise, we can give a not condition with another criterion that we will discuss later on. Size equal to, what is the size of the specific column? This is a very rare case where we compare with the size of the column. And we'll discuss this skill later on. And equal to, that we have discussed. EQ property means okay, we'll compare one property with another property. Like when ID equal to age. So please fetch all the records whose ID value equal to the age value. Understood? EQ property will be used to compare one property with another property in the same row. Okay? Please fetch all the records whose ID value will be equal to the age value. Understood? What Prasad? Understood? No? Let's consider like there is a record. There are three records. ID 100, name A, age 20. ID 200, name B, age 30. ID 10, name C, age 10. Then I'm by EQ property, I'm telling to the criteria that please fetch all the records whose ID value is equal to the age value. How many records will be fetched in this case? Only one. What's the record? The third record. Just because the ID value will be equal to the age value. EQ property means it will compare the value of this property with this property and only the matching records will be fetched. Understood? All the things are the same. This is greater than G is greater than equal to G property means greater than equal to some by comparing two properties. Okay. In the same way, GT means greater than GT property means greater than by comparing two properties, like some EQ and EQ property. Okay, same less than equal to property. Okay, and like as we told, it will be used to compare the string content with the matching text. Okay, like as we told, select star from person where person named like. Okay, just to fetch the matching content. Okay, with that text. Okay, to get the matching content with that text, we go for like. Now it will give all the records whose name will end with R. Person means anything that ends with R. So what we'll do is restrictions dot like name starts with okay V. Please fetch all the records whose name starts with V. Understood? I'm sorry, this is percentage is in the beginning, so end with V. If the percentage is at the end, then it will be start with V, it can contain anything. Okay? Starting with V, the content of that person name can have anything. Okay? But it should start only the records that start with V will be fetched. Okay? Only the records that have a name that is starting with V will be fetched. Okay? And
if you want to find the null record, where the null is mentioned in the code, then in second is we have to mention that null.
see, null value will be compared by using is null or is not null. We won't go for null value with like or equal to or something like that. We have specific method as we discussed earlier. Is null will be used to check whether if you want to fetch the records that have a null value, okay, then we will go for is not null. If we want to restrict the records that have a null value, then we will go for is null method. Okay, we have specific methods for that purpose, and that is like and in the same way, LT property that we have discussed. Natural ID not required. Any means not equal to. Okay? Any property means not equal to property. Not equal to comparison with a specific property. Okay? Any is not equal to. Any property is not equal to property. Not equal to condition compared with another property. Okay? Those are the methods in criteria. For each and every specific purpose, we use a specific method. Okay, and we can use OR. Okay, we can use the OR condition. Okay. We can apply two restrictions with a OR condition. Like this. Or you can directly like this. Now we are putting restrictions.or with two other restrictions. That means please fetch the records. Okay, like I'll give like this. Please fetch the records whose either name equal to Rajesh or age is greater than 26. Okay, let me print the values. Okay, age is not there. Sorry, age is not configured in the HBM file. We have removed that earlier for earlier purposes. So let me make it ID. ID is greater than 300. Either name is Rajesh or ID is greater than 300. So it will fetch all the records whose ID is greater than 300 or name equal to Rajesh. Let me fetch all the records. Let me see what are the records present. Let me connect to Suresh, where is the SQL developer? Okay. This is one of the GUI tools to interact with the databases. It is specific to Oracle. Mostly if we are using Oracle database means for general purposes we use SQL developer only. But for extended development we use Toad and all. Yes, I'll list out the values that are existing. These are some temporary tables. Just we'll first what we do is once we log in, once we get this home page, we'll create a new connection. Click on the connections tab, right click, go for a new connection. Okay, just we'll give we can give any connection name. Okay, just go for I've gone for HCU demo. We can go for any name, just for our understanding. Okay, I should give the exact username. Here the username is system and password is HCU for us. In your local system you can give any username and password. Just I'll save the password so that I will give the password for future purposes. Okay, and local host is the same, 1521 is the same, XE is the same. But in your system, Oracle might be installed in some other port, or you may not be using the same local host. If the Oracle database is installed in some other machine, then we will give that IP address. Okay, SID is the name of the database. Okay, so just after giving all the values, test the connection. If the test is success, then we could be able to connect it. Then we can view all the things, tables, views, all the things we can view, but I'm going for H1 person. Okay, there are several tabs. The first column is columns. It will list out all the columns, what are the data types and all. Okay, and data. It will list out all the records. Okay, constraints. It will list out all the constraints. Okay, what are the constraints available? Okay, like this, permissions, indexes, triggers, all the things will be available. Okay, so that we need not to write any query to view the records or to perform some operations. Directly, since this is a GUI tool, okay, it will be more flexible okay, to view the data that we have in a specific database object. Okay, so now onwards use this SQL developer. Okay, Sharath, please post the link where we can download it. Okay. So now there are multiple records. Now let me fetch the records which whose name is Sharath or the ID is greater than 300. Okay. Now if I execute this, it will fetch Sharath as well as all the records whose ID is greater than 300. Now even we can go for or condition. Sorry, and the condition. This is a logical conditions. Okay, and or not. These are logical conditions. And or not. These are logical conditions. Now, how many records will be fetched for this? Name equal to Sharath and ID greater than 300. Name equal to Sharath and ID greater than 300. How many records will be fetched? Name equal to Sharath and ID greater than 300. How many records? Name equal to Sharath and ID is greater than 300. What is this the standards of HCU? Is this the standards of HCU? People studying MTech and MCA but doesn't know what is N and what is R. There is no record matching just because the name should be Sharath and the ID should be greater than 300. There is no matching records here. So it will give empty list. It will give empty list. Okay, this doesn't contain anything matching. Okay, likewise we can apply some conditions. Let's consider like there are three columns. There are three columns. Age is ID, name and age. Okay, now let me add this column. I think we can add one row, but just let me commit. Now commit is succeeded. Let me see the columns. Refresh it. Age is there. Okay. Now let me populate values for age. And let me go for the data. Let me refresh it. Age value is null. Let me give 24, 25. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Like this, we can give values directly here, and if we commit, then they are permanently committed in the database. Just let me commit. So this query will be executed and permanently committed in the database. Now we have some values to the age. Let me configure age given in HBM file. Do we need to specify the column? Do we need to specify the column? Is it enough? Is it enough, or do we need to specify anything else? Age is not null. Age might be null for me.
But we have to specify the length of that string so that
Length, age is not a string here. Age is a integer. The data type of the age is integer. We should, just because by default it will take as a string. So we should specify that it is a integer. Otherwise, if I don't give type equal to integer, by default it will consider age as string. But in the database, what is the data type of age? It is a number. That means it is a some kind of numeric value. So we should specify that it is a value or it is a property of specific data type. Understood? If you don't give this, it will consider by default it will consider as a string. It will consider this property as a string, but in database it is not a string, it is a integer. Now, what I will do is, if I want to add three conditions, okay, ID name equal to Sharath, okay, age is less than, sorry, ID is less than 300, and age equal to something. Then what I should do? If I want to apply three conditions, okay, name equal to Sharath, and ID is less than 300, and age equal to something. If I want to apply three conditions, how I can do?
they will extend this by entering another restriction that
But if you see the AND method, it will take only two values.
we can just say
Nested, and that means and restrictions dot and. Okay, the first restriction. Understood what we had done? If you want to format the code, just go for Control Shift F. Just because the maximum, as per standards, the maximum allowed characters in a line is only 80. In a line, there should be only 80 characters. We should not develop an application so that it will prolong through the page, through the width of the page. Okay, the maximum width should be 80. In Eclipse, we need not to count that number of characters in a specific line. Just develop something, go for Control Shift F. Control Shift F, so that it will automatically format as per the standards. So restrictions dot and, again restrictions dot and with something. Okay. Now will it fetch the record? Will it fetch the record? These are the records in the database and these are my restrictions.
No.
Why no?
Not making any or
Why it is not fetched?
all three columns are just not
All three columns were not?
names are as well as ID as well as names.
I'm not getting you. What was your doubt? Like, what was your review? You told something, but it is wrong.
It's give one
First record. First record will be fetched just because for the first record name is the only record that is there with the name Sharath is the first record, and it is less than 300, and the age is also greater than 20. So the first record will be fetched. So if I execute this, it will fetch the first record. Now, if there are 10 conditions in the end, there are 10 conditions in the end, then what will you do? Do you write like this? If you write like this, it will become very complex to understand. Okay, and in and two conditions, again in and another two conditions, again in and another two conditions. If we write like this, it will become very complex if there are 10 or 20 conditions. Understood? So, in general, there are more than two conditions in the logical expression. Okay, either in and or whatever it might be. If there are more than two restrictions, if there are two restrictions, it is okay to use restrictions.or and restrictions.n. But if there are more than two restrictions, here how many restrictions are there? 3. Okay, name equal to Sharath, ID is less than 300, age is greater than 20. There are 3 restrictions. If there are 10 restrictions or 20 restrictions, writing some nested restrictions like this with a and, okay, will be complex to understand. We can achieve the result, but it will be very complex to understand. So, if there are more than 2 restrictions, we should not use restrictions.and or restrictions.or. Okay, we should use another interface is there named conjunction. Which one? If you could able to create an object, is it an interface or a class? Obviously. This allow all the restrictions to the conjunction. I can add all the restrictions to the single conjunction. If there are more than two conditions, or if there are more than two restrictions, then we won't go for restrictions.or or restrictions.n. This will create a conjunction. We'll add all the restrictions to the conjunction, and we'll add the criteria conjunction to the criteria. Okay? We create a conjunction. We create a new conjunction object. We'll add all the restrictions to the conjunction, and then we'll add the conjunction to the criteria. So it will reduce the complexity. All the restrictions will be there at one place. Rather than going for nested and, we'll be having all the conjunction at one place. We'll see that later on. So first we'll discuss conjunction, then we'll discuss how it will be achieved for or. Now it is for and conjunction will be used for and. Okay. If you want to add multiple restrictions with and condition, then we use a conjunction. So, just if I execute this, the same result will be fetched, but we are using a and condition here, using a conjunction. In the same way, if you want to go for a or condition, if you want to go for a or condition, then we'll go for disjunction. In place of conjunction, we can create a disjunction. Is it not there? Why? It's not there for distinction. Hmm. So we can directly use restrictions dot distinction, or even for conjunction also I think it is restrictions dot conjunction. This is the best way rather than going for just step of the previous conjunction creation and write like this restrictions dot conjunction, and it will create restrictions dot distinction. This is the best way of creating a conjunction or distinction object by using restrictions dot conjunction or by using restrictions dot distinction. Step of the previous conjunction creation and write the conjunction distinction creation like this by using restrictions dot conjunction or restrictions dot distinction.
So we have created object before. Now this is like a particular function. That particular function.
That particular function will internally create the object.
It means in both ways for
It's for both way.
previously the relation that created the object and it's also work. Now this way it's also working.
There is no difference.
Then how is the internal implementation?
Internal implementation will be like it will create the object.
Okay, and second.
For second also it will create object. Might be it is abstract class, or I am not sure about that. But if it is abstract class, then it will create the object to the implementation using anonymous map class. Okay. But anyhow, it will create a conjunction object and distinction object. And to the distinction, we are adding values. And between multiple conditions that we add to criteria, it will be AND. Between multiple conditions that we add to criteria, it will be AND. So then what are the values fetched? For this database and for these restrictions? All the records? All the records will be fetched just because all the records have an age greater than 20. Now how many records will be fetched? All? All the records? So in that case, will this record be fetched? It will not be fetched. Except second record, the remaining records will be fetched. Understood? Like this, we will apply some conditions. Let's consider like there is one conjunction and there is some distinction. Okay? Then what are the values fetched? Just observe what we have done. What are the God fetch? Only those two records will be fetched. Because of the first disjunction, okay, except the ID with 400, the rest of the records will be fetched. Then the first result set contains all these records. The first result set contains all these records except the second record, and the second result set contains, okay, because of this restriction, name should be like R and age is greater than 20. Age is greater than 20 means all the records, but name should be like R means only these two records. Only these two records, and this is one disjunction. Sorry, this is one conjunction with any conditions. This is disjunction with all conditions, and I have added these two. Both I have added to the criteria. But between these two result sets, it will be a AND. Just because criteria by default it have a AND between multiple conditions. So this result set and this result set. What are the common elements between these two? Only these two. So only these two records will be fetched. That's how it will be. That's how Hibernate criteria will work. Understood?
If you want to apply power between this disjunction, condition and conjunction to condition.
That means you want a union of that? Then you should go for understood? Then it will give a union of those two records. By default it will be AND, but if you want to go for OR, either you can go for a disjunction or directly restrictions.OR. Now it will give a union of these two subsets. Now it will give the union of these two subsets. The union of these two subsets will be in the first set itself.
So adding the criteria because
It will not see where ID equal to something and name equal to something will not make any difference to first name equal to something and ID equal to something.
First we are taking the registration. Right now we are taking the registration. But if you one of the first we take and conjunction, then what will be when first and will be executing then or executing then. So there from which statement we can take.
See, first and will be executed, and then OR will be executed. Let's consider like first AND is executed. Okay, And the first record is, if the first result set is this and the second result set is this, then it will pick up the common result set. In that case, will it make any difference?
But no, but it will be the like condition 1 and condition 2 and condition 3 are.
See, it's not a continuous condition. Obviously, it depends upon the database precedence. Okay? It doesn't depend upon anything on Hibernate. Whatever the precedence that the database will have, the database has and as a preference, obviously Hibernate will also go for that. Hibernate will not do anything, just it will create a query as per that, as per the and or that we have to. How the query is executed and how the precedence will be there depends upon the database that we use. And this is how we can apply the restrictions. Restrictions are something like the conditions that we apply in the where clause. And in the same way, we can go for restrictions dot not. So, just with these conditions, I am applying another condition where we are using not and with a restriction. So, it should not be equal, it should not fetch the record with ID equal to 200. Among this result set, it should not fetch the record with ID equal to 200. See not and or not. These three are logical conditions. Okay, logical operators. So this is how we can use the criteria. To apply some conditions in the where clause. And how do we specify the elements in the select list? Okay. How do we specify some elements in the select list? We want to specify any element in the select list. Okay. We have something like projections. Restrictions means the conditions that we write in the where clause. Projections means the elements that we specify in the select list. Okay. The elements that we specify in the select list, we call it as a projection. Yes, what we do is, first we get a projection list. Projection list. First we get a projection list. To the projection list we add multiple projections. Okay, and that projection list will be added to the criteria. To the criteria object, we have a method set projection, where we set the projection list. Understood what we have done? We have created an object to projection list in the projections class, and by using the method projection list. And to that projection list, we add number of projections. So please fetch only the ID and name from the database. By telling this, we are telling that please fetch only ID and name from the database. Projections means the elements that we need to specify in the select list. That is called projections. Restrictions means the conditions that we specify in the where clause. First we create a projection list. First we create a projection list where we can add multiple projections to the projection list, and at the end to the criteria we'll set the projections using criteria.set projection method. The first thing is create a projection list. Add multiple projections to the projection list. The first thing is create a projection list. Add multiple projections to the projection list. Okay? And once the projection list is there, we execute the method criteria.set projection where we add the projection list. First, write down these three statements. Creating projection lists. First, create a projection list. Add multiple projections to the projection list. Once the projection list is there with you, just we execute criteria.set projection method. Like in case of query, even using criteria we can set the size of the result set, like set first result, set max result. All these things are possible even in criteria also. We are not going to discuss them once again. Whatever the things that we have discussed in query, okay, fetching a limited number of records from the result set, that can be possible even in case of criteria also. Set first results or set max results, all these things are possible even in criteria, and it will follow the same way, same approach. And once projection list is ready, we will set the projection list to the criteria.set projection list. So that only ID and name will be fetched. So we'll go for this condition. We'll go for these conditions and we'll go for the list of projections, so that with these conditions ID and name will be fetched. So let me execute the records. So since we have specified a specific projection list, okay, it will not fetch, the POJO object will not be created automatically, same in case of query. Okay, so we need to write some mappers. Okay, we need to write some result mapper, so that this POJO object or this specific value will be mapped to that specific POJO class object. If everything is fetched, then only the POJO class object will be created. If partial information is fetched, the POJO object will not be created. So for that, what we need to do is we need to write some customized mappers which will map Okay, the Pojo class, the fetch Pojo class, sorry, the fetched value to the specific Pojo class. Okay, that we'll see at the end. How we can write the mappers. There are a limited elements in the select list. If all the elements are selected means the Pojo class object will be created. But if limited elements are selected, okay, the Pojo object will not be created. It's our responsibility to create the Pojo object by using some mappers. That we'll see at the end. Okay? But some records are fetched in this case. That's how it will be. How the restrictions and projections. And if you want to make some group by, okay, just do you know what is group by? Everybody? Everybody know what is group by? Yes? What about you, Sharat? Do you know group by? Let's consider that there are 10 students, okay? 10 students in the same department. Then, if I want to fetch, okay, the count of students in that department, or if I want to fetch the maximum number of marks in that department, then what I will do is, first I'll group all the records by the department, and then I'll fetch the condition, right? Yes, these are the maximum number of records. Okay. My requirement is to fetch the department ID and the maximum percentage in the department. Okay. Percentage. Now what I will do is select max percentage from student, okay, group by department ID, group by department ID. So what we are doing is we are grouping all the student information to a department. In that group, we will getting the maximum percentage. So it will give the first department and the maximum percentage, second department and the maximum percentage. If one group multiple records together as an entity, we use group by. Just search for group by. Try to practice some examples of group by. Okay. So if you want to go for, if you want to achieve group by in criteria, in the property itself we specify that this is a group property. Okay. Some of the interviewers will be asking how we can achieve group by in criteria of Hibernate. We should use the group property. And how we can achieve order means, I think there is method set order. No, I don't remember what is the method name. Order by. Is there any order? No. Set order. No. Let me see in the restrictions itself. I think there is something in order itself. Add order. There may be two orders, ascending or descending. I'll use the descending order of H. This is how we can add the order. Is in Hibernate. criteria. We can set the order by using the method add order, where we use order dot either ascending or descending, where we specify the column project class attribute name. This is how order by can be achieved. Group by can be achieved using projections.group property, and order by in criteria can be achieved using order dot ascending or order dot descending, where we add it to the criteria using a method add order. Understood? Everybody? What Prasad? Got it? Let's see how much we have got. And these are the minimal database interactions that we do. Okay? Most of the regular database interaction will contain all those things. Okay? And do we have first result, max result that we have discussed already?
Make a copy of one column.
Make a copy of
One column.
copy of one column and another column?
You want to like temporary column created.
That will not be achieved. That is batch process. That's done through batch processing. We won't do that using criteria. What else is there in criteria? Is there anything? Yeah, most probably these are the things that we can do in criteria.
What are the things we can do in this query and not do in query?
Everything that we can do with query, we can do with criteria, and whatever the thing that we can do with criteria, we can do the same thing using query also. In query, we can write a simple SQL query. In criteria, we can use methods. So it will be more specific. So see, in query, we write the values at some place and we define the parameters at some other place. But here it is clear that age is greater than 20. Okay, it's more clear. And moreover, we need not to bother about any syntax here. In case of SQL query, we need to bother about the syntax. But the size of the program might become lengthy if we use criteria. But it will be a simple SQL query. It depends upon your flexibility. If you know SQL query very well, and if you are sure that you won't make any syntactical errors, then go for query. But in general, people or architects will prefer to go with criteria just because there will not be syntactical problems. Okay, if there are 10 developers in a team, not all developers may have the exact knowledge about the syntax and the rules. But in case of criteria, we need not bother about any syntaxes or rules. So people will prefer, architects will prefer developers to go with criteria. Okay, this is how the criteria will be, and once the criteria is completed, okay, and in the criteria we can to get the number of rows fetched. So let's consider there is a record. Let's consider like there is a result set, and we are fetching some elements, and to get the row count, we need not to execute the list method directly. We have a method named I think there is a row count method. No? Yes, I think there is. I'll let you know later on, but there is some method which gives you the row count, the number of rows present in the result set. And unique result, we have a method named unique result which will fetch only the distinct records. Unique result will fetch the distinct record. Okay. Method unique result will fetch you the distinct record. If we are using unique result, we should ensure that the number of records fetched will be only one. Okay, let's consider like we are using unique result, but the list contains, let's consider like I am not adding any projection. Now in this case it will fetch multiple records. There are multiple records, we should not use the method unique result. If we are ensured that we are getting only one result and the result should be unique, then we can go for unique result. Here we are expecting a unique result, but the result is not unique. Okay, so in that case it will give a or.hibernate dot non-unique result exception. Okay, if we are expecting the query should return a unique result, then the query should return a unique result. But for this query, it will not return a unique result. It will return 5 or 6 records. But it's not unique. The ID is not unique. Okay, so it will give you a non-unique result exception. When we use unique result means when the requirement is in such a way that the record should be unique. Okay. If the expectation is the record should be unique but the query is not giving a unique result means it's a problem with the query. We should not change the unique result to list method just because we are expecting a unique result, a unique record from the database. We are expecting a unique record from the database, but the result, but the query or the criteria is not giving a unique record means either it is a problem with the database, there might have multiple records which we need to filter out, or there is a problem with the filter criteria that we have in the criteria, filter restrictions that we have in the criteria. There might be two potential problems where the problem might be in the database or the problem might be in the restrictions that we use. Okay, but the user expectation is that you should provide a unique record to him. So we should not change this unique result, but we should catch the exception and we should provide the information to the user that yes, this is not a unique record. Okay, understood? But we should catch this exception, non-unique result exception. When it will be occurred means when we execute a method unique result but the result set doesn't contain any unique record. Okay, note down this exception in your list of exceptions and when that exception will be occurred. Yes, note down the exception and when the exception occurs, in which scenario the exception occurs. Make a list of those exceptions and the exception scenarios. when a particular exception occurs. Understood? And then next concept that we are going to discuss is a composite primary key. Composite primary key. Composite primary key. Okay. A primary key constraint. All of you know what are constraints, right? There are several customized constraints or a default, the existing constraints like primary key, unique key, not null, check. All these are constraints available in the database. Okay. The primary key constraint, okay, can contain one column or even multiple columns. The primary key constraint can contain one column or multiple columns. If the primary key constraint contains multiple columns, then it is said to be a composite primary key. A composite primary key which contains multiple columns. If the primary key constraint contains multiple columns, then it is said to be that primary key is said to be a composite primary key. Composite primary key. So what I'll do is I'll make the ID and name as primary key. Now earlier, if you see the constraints, okay, the primary key contains only ID. Let me open the constraints. Okay, what is the primary key? What is the primary key column? Person name. So now what I'm doing is I'm adding person name also to the primary. So now the primary key is composite of person ID and person. See, now you see the constraints. It is a composite of the primary key is a composite of first person ID and then person name. Okay, it's a composite primary key now. Now, if you see the data, now let me try to add one more record with the ID 100. The ID 100, but name is different. And the age is okay, and we commit that. Is it inserted successfully? Yes or no? Yes. Now the primary key is not specific to the person ID. Primary key is the combination of person ID and person name. The combination of person ID and person name should not be unique. Understand? So let me add another record with 100 ID and the name is Sarah and the age is 30. And if you try to commit that, what is telling? Already some constraint is there which is violated. Just because already there is a name with, there is a combination of person ID and person name with 107. So I'll remove that. Understood how it will be? Now it is a composite primary key of person ID and person name. Then how we can configure that composite primary key in Hibernate? Okay, that we'll see. Now, let me, in place of the tag ID, now, in case of composite primary key, we'll have a composite ID. We'll have a composite ID. This, the composite primary key combination should have a specific class. Let me write a specific class here. Person primary key. Okay. Person primary key contains the composite elements ID and name. The person primary key will contain the composite elements ID and name. So let me show status and status. Now the person primary key object or the person primary key class contains the composite elements, and I have removed the composite elements from the person class. Let me override processing method. Otherwise, let me give it like this, and let me make that composite member as a member of this class. Let me generate the status and getters. Okay, the person has age and PK field, primary key field. Then the person primary key will has ID and name. Now pk field dot get id and pk field dot get name. Okay, in the choosing method also I am doing the same. Okay, now earlier person used to contain this, all the things, age, name and id. Now age, name, id are a part of a composite primary key which we represent through a class named person pk which has the id and name, and this person pk, okay, is the integral part of person. Understood? Understood the entity structure? Understood? Now we configure this here. We configure this class here. What is the property which is representing that? pk field. So, and multiple columns. What are the multiple columns here? Multiple attributes, id, and what is the column? Person underscore id. And type is int. Now name understood what we have done? This is how. Please don't write it now. There might be some modifications. Okay, just I'll let you know, but please don't write them now. Let me execute this application first. If there are any errors, we can rectify, otherwise we can write. Let me remove all this part of conjunctions and disjunctions. Okay, simply I'll get criteria dot I'll get all the records from person. Okay, let me remove in this query, it's not required now. What I'm doing is I'm fetching all the records from the person class. Okay, and now the person class has a reference of person primary key field, and the person primary key field contains a combination of id and name. Now the person class has person primary key field combination and the age. The same thing we have configured even in the Hibernate file, either id or composite id. Okay. Now, if it is a combination of multiple columns, we can not make it generator class. We cannot make it sequence generated. Hibernate cannot do that. There are 10 columns. Hibernate cannot generate values to 10 columns. So, if it is a composite primary key, it's the responsibility of the application to generate the composite primary key. So, let me execute this application. Element. So he must be terminated by matching tag. Is it not like that? Sorry, I did not give any end tag here. Attribute name must be defined. I think it is property. Let me see. think it is very long also. Composite కింద నేమ్ ప్రాపర్టీ ఓకే that's a problem. First implement serializable. Okay, serializable. Yes. Yeah, list out the things in order. The first thing is we have used a composite primary key using a specific class. If you want to go for a composite primary key, we should go for a specific class. Okay, a separate class which has all the members of the composite primary key. Okay, in general, it's not mandatory. We can achieve through other ways also, but in general, we go for separate class as a composite primary key. Which is a separate class, we'll go for a separate class which contains the composite primary key elements. So, for that purpose, I have written a separate class which contains all the composite primary key elements. Now, let me go for the class. Then, the class that has the composite primary key should be serializable. Okay, that's one of the rules. The class which represents the composite primary key should be serializable. I'm not sure why it should be serializable. I'll let you know. But as per a rule, the class that represents the composite primary key should be serializable. Okay? And the class contains the attributes ID and name and all. Okay? And then the next thing is, once we have that information, here what we do is, in order to represent a composite primary key, we go for a tag composite ID in the HBM file. Okay? The composite ID, what is the name of the reference in the main class? What is the main class? Person. What is the name of the reference? PKP. So, the same name we have given in the name. And what is the class that represents the composite primary key? Okay, what is the data type of the class that represents the composite primary key? Is person PK. So we have given the same. Okay, and we'll list out all the members of the composite primary key using a tag key property. Okay, key F1 property. And what is the name of the attribute in the composite primary class? And what is the column that we want to map? What is the name of the attribute in the composite primary class? And what is the column that we want to map in the database? Understand? This is how we can achieve a composite primary key. Let me repeat. The first thing is, in general, the better way of doing is, okay, write a separate class which has all the composite primary key elements. So here in this case we have ID and name as a composite primary key. So we will represent all the values of the composite primary key in a separate class where we have an ID and name which represents the composite primary key, and that class should be serializable. Okay, and that class should be a member of the main class person. Okay, and once we have developed the Pojo classes, in the configuration side we use a tag composite ID. Earlier we used to use ID, now we should use composite ID. Okay, composite ID is the name of the attribute in the main class. What is the attribute name in the main class? PKPL. So we have given the same name and the class that represents the composite primary key. And then individual attributes should be mapped to the specific column names using the tag key property. Okay. So what are the members of the primary composite primary key and to which column they are mapped and which attribute of the primary class should be mapped. Primary key class should be mapped. Understood? This is how composite primary key can be implemented, and let me try to insert with the composite primary key. I think criteria doesn't have methods to save the information. That's one of the restrictions with criteria. It doesn't have the methods to persist the information. If we want to save the information, we should go for query. So let me use a query. Criteria is used only for fetching the information, but if you want to go for updation or DDL or DML operations, we should go for query. Sorry. Please, it was my mistake. Criteria or query will be used to fetch the database, fetch the information from the database. I was in other mode, so just please type of the previous point that I told. Criteria or query will be used to fetch the information from the database. Okay? If you want to persist the information or if you want to perform some DML operation, we use the session methods, save or update. First, let me create a person object. How is the transaction? Flush. Close the system. Then the purpose is done. Okay, just I have created a person object, I have set the age, and I have created the primary key object, and I have set the values, and then I have set the primary key field. Okay, and then I am saving the person. Now we execute this application. Insert into HO person, age, person ID, and person name with the specific values. Okay, now if you see in the database, 800 Ravi 25 record will be inserted. Now let me insert another record with the same ID 800 but the different name. Same ID exists but different name exists. Will it be inserted? Yes, it can be possible because it is a composite primary key. But with the ID is the same and name is the same. Let me try to insert it once again. Then it will give you a exception. Constraint violated exception. The constraint is being violated. The primary key constraint is being violated. Understand? That's how. Constraint violated exception will come when the constraint is violated. Either primary key or unique key, whatever the constraint is violated, it will give you a constraint violated exception. Understood? How a composite primary key will work? And we can use this composite primary key concept. Now let me remove the constraint from the database. Let me try whether it is working or not. Yes, it is working now. Now I have removed the primary key elements. Okay. Now there is no primary key with me. Okay. Now let us see whether this will work or not. Let me remove this. So there is a unique combination now. Now what I will do is, there is no primary key in my table, there is no element in the primary key, otherwise there is no element in the primary key, but here if you see, there is only not null constraints, there is no concept of primary key here. Okay, the constraint is a check constraint and this is also check constraint. There is no primary key constraint here. So there is no primary key in this table. Now if there is no primary key in this table, now let me try to insert another record. $800 and name is Ganesh. Okay. Now is the table expected to have a primary key? Is the Hibernate could able to interact with the database even though there is no primary key? Yes or no? Yes. But even in that case, we should have a composite primary key configured in the HBM file. Without any primary key, it is not possible. Understood? But if we have a composite ID configured in the HBM file, then it is possible to interact with a specific table that doesn't have a primary key. It's not completely impossible to interact a table that doesn't have a primary key in Hibernate. We can do that, but we should specify at least a composite key. Understood? Composite primary key is different. Composite primary key will be at the database level. Here it is a composite key which is configured at the Hibernate level. This is a composite key which is configured at the Hibernate level. The same thing can be used to represent a composite primary key of the database table. Understood? See, this is composite ID can be used in two ways. The first way is to represent a composite primary key that exists in the database. The second thing is to represent some unique combination for the records that are inserted in a specific table. But this composite ID tag will not expect that there should be such a composite primary key in the table. Understood? The composite ID tag will never expect there should be a composite primary key combination without specific columns in the database table. It might exist or might not exist. But the way to represent composite primary key columns of the database tables is composite ID only. The composite ID can be used in two ways. The first way is to represent the composite primary key in the database table. That's fine. The second way is even the primary key doesn't exist in the database table. Okay? To represent some unique combination of a specific record, we should use the composite ID just because Hibernate should distinguish between multiple POJO objects. How Hibernate distinguishes between multiple POJO objects means using some specific unique value. If it is ID, then primary key will be a unique value. There is no ID tag, then how a unique combination will be represented means using a composite ID. Even that composite primary key doesn't exist in the database table. Even a primary key doesn't exist in the database table. At the Hibernate level, we can filter out or we can specify some unique combination using composite ID tag. Understood?
How can we decide that two columns will be unique in that?
That as per the business requirements. We'll discuss with business.
Ultimately, it will become as a composite plan.
But there is no constraint in the database level. There is no constraint in the database level, but in the business level, what we do, as per some specific business requirement, we should maintain it as a unique combination. There is no such constraint at the database level. At the database level, it may exist, but our application should not allow that. Through our application, it should not. Let's consider like there is a database. Into the database, the records can be inserted in any way. The DBA can manually insert that, or through some scripts we can insert the data. By any way, we can do that. But if that goes from our application, it will be unique combination. Understand? It will be like that.
So, whether there is any indication of survey to automatically generating
that we can use a generator class, no?
actually, that database we are not trying that nonsense. So, by default, the weight key is weighting.
Select key.
Okay, open the database.
Which one?
Open the database table.
Okay.
Automatically generated.
Where?
That is the was 1 to 10.
This is the sequence number.
Usually add one of the
Mm-hmm. See, it's not a key in the database. There will be a identifier named row num, ROW, This will be the name. What is the index of the row in the database? It will not generated through our application. It's represented in the GUI, so that it doesn't have any column name. It's the index of the row in the database. First row, second row, third row. How we can maintain the index of the rows means internal database itself will maintain the rows. Okay, that's not our topic of discussion. Okay, but even though there is no primary key in the database, okay, when the data is inserted or updated from our application, Hibernate can restrict that yes, this should be a unique combination and it should not be violated. That kind of logical constraints can be kept in the Hibernate level, even that doesn't exist in the database level. Okay, this is not an actual constraint that exists in the database. This is not in the database. We can insert multiple records with the same combination, with the same person ID and same person name. We can insert multiple records. At the database level, there is no constraint, there is no physical constraint like that. But at the Hibernate level, we can establish some logical constraint. So that yes, if this record goes through Hibernate, okay, then this combination should be unique. Okay, that kind of logical constraint can be maintained using a composite ID tag. Now, is it impossible to interact with the table if there is no primary key? It's not impossible. It can be possible. Okay, by another way using composite primary. But if you don't want to interact with, if you don't want to have a primary key in the table, and if you want to use ID tag, then it is not valid. If you want to use ID tag, then the column we represent in the ID tag should be a primary key. If you don't have primary key in the table, as well as if we should use the if we should use the ID tag, then that case is a error case. Just because if we should use the if we should use the ID tag, then the column that is represented in the ID tag should be a primary key. Even though there is no primary key in the table, we can use the composite ID, which can be used as a combination of multiple properties as a logical unique combination. It's not the actual constraint, it's not the actual unique constraint, or it's not the actual primary key constraint in the database level, but in the Hibernate level, we can apply some logical constraint. Okay? It's not a physical constraint that exists in the database. In the level of Hibernate, we are applying some logical constraints so that whatever the data that goes from Hibernate, or whatever the data that is retrieved through Hibernate framework, will be uniquely represented by these properties.
So if we insert the duplicate value, then it can't be verified by any exception.
Pardon?
If you will insert any
Duplicate record externally.
externally,
Yes.
in Hibernate level it is constrained, but in data level it is not
Constraint.
So it won't give
Yeah, it will give exceptions while fetching. Yes. It will give exceptions while fetching. So that we should make sure that duplicate records.
Not while fetching, while inserting.
While inserting also. See, while inserting, let's consider that in the database we have 800 Ganesh. 800 Ganesh is there. Okay. Now let me try to insert another record. Yes, it's inserted perfectly. Yeah, it will be inserted, but if you want to represent, or if you want to map a table that doesn't have a primary key, this is the only option. Okay, but while fetching, also it will consider that value as a unique combination. Yeah, great point. Okay, the rest of the things we'll discuss them in the next class. Okay, the interviewer asked you like, is it impossible to interact with the database table if there is no primary key? No, it's not impossible. It can be possible. It can be made possible by writing a separate primary key class, or writing a separate composite key class, and that composite key should be represented using the composite ID. That is the only way where we can interact with the database table if there is no primary key. Okay? The rest of the things we'll discuss in the next class. In the next class, we'll start with the associations.